I want to tell you two reasons why I'm here for David Williams. You might say, what's a governor from Wisconsin doing in the Commonwealth of Kentucky? Two simple reasons. The first is maybe a little bit of setting an example. Although you've got a leader who knows what it takes in the state capitol to get things done, so I don't know that he needs much of an example, but maybe in terms of laying the platform to the voters about what can happen. Last year when I was running, we had a very clear plan, very much like the plan you just announced this week about jobs. And a lot of times people in the press would say, yeah, but. They say, yeah, but a lot, right? Yeah, but how do you get it done? And I would point to Bobby Jindal, to Rick Perry, to Mitch Daniels, to Chris Christie, to Bob McDonnell, and I'd point to all these Republican governors and say, they did it. I don't need a theory. I can tell you these are my plans, and they're replicating the success that these Republican governors have had elsewhere around this great country. And there's plenty of other great examples like that. Now, since then, there's been a whole lot more of us elected. In fact, I'd like to add David Williams as the 30th member of the Republican Governors Association. You look just up the way, whether it's John Kasich, whether it's Rick Snyder, whether it's Rick Scott, you look down the line, Tom Corbett over in Pennsylvania, we have shown that if you elect Republicans who've clearly defined a bold vision for our states, we'll get it done. We'll get it done. And so that's what you need here. And so part of it is to make the case, to give the example of what we've done. Many of you have commented about it on the way in, but one of the great things we like to point out is we came in with one of the largest structural deficits ever, $3.6 billion back in January when I took office. Today, we have a $300 million surplus because we had the will to understand you don't spend money you don't have. In addition, the other great news is along the way by reforming, not just cutting. A lot of times I think Republicans get a bum rap. We're not just about cutting. We're about making the things that we should be doing work better. So it's about cutting back on the areas that government shouldn't be involved in and then stepping up and saying the areas where we do belong, let's make sure we make it work better. So that's what real reform's about. In our case, one of the great news is not only balancing a budget, but we now have not only a state government, but local governments all across Wisconsin that have balanced their budget and in many cases are doing it in a way where in our schools, my two kids go to public schools, our schools like this in Wauwatosa, like other school districts across our state, where our schools have saved so much money, they're actually adding teachers, lowering classroom size, and what I love the best that didn't get covered much in the national media is they're not just balancing the budget. We're able, because we changed the laws so we don't have contracts anymore, we can actually hire and fire based on merit. We can pay based on performance. We can put the best and the brightest in our classroom, and that's good for our kids, not just our budget. The other part that's working that ties in precisely with what David put out this week in terms of the job plan is the things he's laid out parallel almost identically to what we did earlier this year in Wisconsin. We did tort reform and regulatory reform, reduced the tax burden on job creators. We basically said the best way to get government or to get the economy working again is to get government out of the way. I said the great adage is not just you don't spend money you don't have. It's the adage that most people in government have forgotten across the country, particularly in Washington. That is that people create jobs, not the government. Right. Yeah. People create jobs. And so we got the government out of the way, and the good news is, in the past, we didn't talk much about those rankings, 1 through 50 in terms of the best states to do business in. As was mentioned before, Bill mentioned this, your Commonwealth is 35 right now. Last year in Wisconsin, we were 41. The year before, 43. Well, after just a few months of the changes we put in place that, again, parallel the great ideas that Dave Williams has in his plan, after just a few months, we went from 41 a year ago up 17 spots, the fastest increase of any state in the entire country, because we said to employers in our state and across the country, we want you to do business and we're going to get out of the way and let you do it. That can make a fundamental difference. If we can do it in Wisconsin, a state that, even though we made a change last November, historically has been a blue, I'd like to say at least a purple state, we're making it a little bit red. You're a whole lot more conservative in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. If we can do it there, there's no doubt with the right leadership, and that's what you got with David Williams, you can do it right here in Kentucky. The other reason I'm here, besides making a case that it can be done not just in Wisconsin, but other states have had Republican governors, is the point, and if you look at it, the states that have been successful this year and in the last couple of years, whether it's Tennessee or it's Texas or others down the line, you look at Virginia, all those are near the top of the rankings. They've all had Republican governors. But the other key reason why I'm here is simple. I've got two sons, Matt and Alex, 16 and 17. I understand that right now we're on the edge of a cliff, and we have to decide whether or not our kids and our grandkids are going to inherit America better or worse than the one we inherited. I mean, I can't overstate that. We are on the edge. This president doesn't get it. This president believes that the way to stimulate the economy is to pour billions of dollars into things that are nothing more than a big bailout for failed state and local governments. That's not a stimulus. That's a big government spending plan. This president thinks that the way to tackle the needs of small businesses growing in our country is to pile on more mandates when it comes to a federal health care mandate. That's not the answer. That's just getting in the way. This president believes that somehow the way that he cures the ills of society is to rein in on things like clean burning coal that not only are important to the economy in Kentucky and West Virginia and other places like that, they're critically important to states like mine that depend on manufacturing clean burning coal technology as one of a multitude of energy sources that keep our energy independence here in America and not in the Middle East where people are out to get us. We need a president that gets it, and in the meantime, the best way for us to do that, short of changing the presidency, is to make sure state by state we change America and don't rely on the changes in Washington. Sure, we need changes there, and I'm going to fight for that. And I know that David's going to fight for that here in Kentucky. But we need to change it one state at a time. And so to have a better America, to have a country that all of you, and just like my kids, all of you who have kids and grandkids want to see an even better America than we've had in the past, we need to make sure we have leaders, men and women of courage, who are willing to stand up, speak boldly, tell the truth, and then follow up and deliver. And I know, based on the record of David Williams in the state Senate here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, you have no one more equipped in this state to do just that than David Williams. My hope is, between now and November 8th, you do everything in your power, whether it's giving a little bit of your time, your talent, your treasure, all the three. That's what it's going to take. Now, I believe you can win. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be wasting my time in a busy schedule if I didn't think that David Williams can get elected governor in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. I just wouldn't be here. I'm a practical man. And I know vividly two key reasons why I know he can and will win as your next governor. One is just right in front of our face, just this past Tuesday. If Bob Turner, a Republican in New York City, can win in a congressional seat that all of us probably heard about. Hopefully most of you didn't see the congressman, at least electronically. But that's a seat that Chuck Schumer, who's a United States Senator from New York State, held for many years. That is in the heart of New York City. That is a seat where if the voters in New York can get it and understand that we need to send a message to the President of the United States and the people in Washington that they don't get it, there's no doubt in an abundantly more conservative state like Kentucky, you all can send an equally powerful message come November 8th. There's just no doubt about it. The other reason I know you can win is because I know it's not only been done in New York State, I know it was happening in my own backyard. You see, before I was the governor for 8 years, I was an elected county executive in Milwaukee County. I grew up in a small town, but I went to school in the Milwaukee area, subsequently served in the state legislature for a little while, and then about a decade ago, there was a big scandal in 2002 in my county. And I stepped up in a county that has never, not in 20, not in 40, not in 60 years, not ever elected a Republican before. I was elected the first time with 54% of the vote. I was elected the second time with 57%. I was elected the third time with nearly 60% of the vote. Reason why is simple. In times of crisis, what people want more than anything is not party allegiance, it's leadership. It is fundamentally leadership. You have a crisis in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Whether everybody talks about it or not, the reality is we face an economic and fiscal crisis in nearly every state in this union. But in Kentucky, you have an unemployment rate that is well above the national average. And I got to tell you, the last time I checked, the national unemployment rate is woefully unacceptable. If it's unacceptable for our country, it is even more unacceptable in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. You need a leader who's going to step up and take that on. I believe, just as we saw in my own backyard, in moments of fiscal and economic crisis, what has made this country great has been there have been men and women of courage and conviction who stood up and cared more about their children and their grandchildren than they did about their own political future. They put the next generation ahead of the next election, and we have in time rewarded those individuals because that's what we want in this country. That's what has made this country great, and I believe again on November 8th that will be proven to be true right here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky as you elect David Williams as your next governor.